going nuts for it, don't you worry. Now, Chicago is the home of the skyscraper. We'll talk all about our skyscrapers as we make our way along the river and the lake today. But the first thing I want to talk about is the sandy-colored building out here to our left. It says Crane Communications on it. And then at the base of that building, there are gold markings in the street that show you the former site of Fort Dearborn. You can't see it from here, but if you visit up right along that corner of Michigan Avenue, it shows you the former site of Fort Dearborn, which was built in 1803 as our first permanent settlement. So we're starting the tour off basically from where the city of Chicago began. It was burned down as part of the War of 1812, rebuilt, and then finally abandoned when Chicago was officially incorporated as a city in 1837. The tall glass building to our right, this is the Trump International Tower and Hotel. It was completed last year, and it's the second tallest building in the city, 1,362 feet and 92 stories. It contains 472 luxury condominiums, 8 penthouses, as well as a 20-story hotel. And as you look up toward the top of the building, you'll notice that it gets narrower up there. And those setbacks are designed to complement the other buildings around the Trump Tower. The lowest setback complements the Wrigley Building, which we just took off from underneath. The second complements the Marina City Towers, which we will see shortly. And the third and tallest setback complements 330 North Wabash, which is the tall black building forward and to our right. And it's the next building that we will talk about. We can see it right after this bridge on our right. It's the black building with the thin line joining up the exterior. This is 330 North Wabash. It was built in 1971 by B.S. Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt believed that less is more when it came to architecture. You can see that reflected in this design. Just the thin I-beams that run up toward the top of the building, but not a lot of other ornamentation or detail beyond that. This building is the former home of IBM in the city of Chicago. There's huge spaces in between the windows. They used to run air conditioning up between, help cool the building more effectively when the computer hardware would begin to overheat the interior of the structure. And two of the most famous buildings along the river are next on our right. These are the twin corncob towers of Marina City. They were built in 1967 by Bertrand Goldberg. Goldberg believed that there were no right angles in nature. You can see that in this design. They're rounded on the outside, and then on the inside, instead of having square or rectangular shaped rooms, the rooms are actually pie shaped, which makes decorating a little difficult, as you can imagine. Now, these buildings have also been featured prominently in movies, most notably in Steve McQueen's The Hunted, when he drove a car off the side of the building and into the Chicago River. That feat was then replicated a couple of years ago for a new state car commercial. It caused a little panic when people saw cars flying off the building, but once they figured out it wasn't their car, they really weren't all that concerned. The blue-green glass building to our right is the home of the American Bar Association. It was built in 1987. And those blue-green glass windows are something you'll see a lot of along the Chicago River today. They're designed to accentuate and bring out the natural color and beauty of both Lake Michigan as well as the Chicago River. We consider our waterways some of our greatest natural resources, and as a result, we try to provide a bit of symmetry between the buildings and the environment around them. Now, the Walnut Red Brick building to our right-hand side, this is the Reed Murdoch Center, which was built in 1914. And it was originally a cold storage warehouse. Warehouses like this used to line the entire Chicago River area. It was a very different and frankly a lot more boring boat tour experience back in the 1920s. Now, the building is also asymmetrical. There's 6 bays of windows on the right and only 5 on the left. That's because when they widened the LaSalle Street Bridge, which we're about to pass under, they actually had to chop off one of those segments of windows to the left-hand side and rebuild the end of it to make it look like it was naturally only 5 segments of windows instead of the 6 that were originally there. Now, the tall glass building next on our right is 300 North LaSalle, which was completed last year, and it's a leader in energy efficiency design certified building. LEED for short. It uses river water to cool the air in the building instead of traditional air conditioning systems. And then at the top of the building on the 60th floor, you can look, but you can't see it. There's a green roof where they have low-level plantings and park space, different things to help mitigate rainwater runoff, help cool the building more effectively, and provide a little bit of green space in what otherwise can become a bit of a concrete jungle in downtown Chicago. Now, the huge building out here to our right is the Merchandise Mart of Chicago. This was built in 1931 to consolidate all of Marshall Field's warehouses into one place. He had 14 warehouses that he put all into this building, and in the process he created what is now the second largest building in terms of physical size in the United States. It's 4.25 million square feet in size. It has 8.5 miles of hallways and corridors. It takes up 2 full city blocks. The only building that is now larger than it is the Pentagon, so it kind of gives you an idea of the scale that we're working with. The heads out front are part of the Merchandise Mart Hall of Fame. Among them you'll find Montgomery Ward and Marshall Field himself. looking inward toward the building as though they're protecting Marshall Field's investment. The original cost of that investment was $33 million back in 1931. It was then sold 2 years later for $13 million in back taxes to the Kennedy family due to the Great Depression. Well, the Kennedys held on to it for 65 years until 1998, when they finally resold it for $575 million. They made a very nice return on their investment off of the merchandise mart. Now, the sandy-colored building to our right with its name written on the outside is the Chicago Sun-Times building. It was built in 1977, originally as an extension of the merchandise mart for the apparel industry. The Sun-Times used to be located where the Trump Tower is today, and when they moved in here, they had to add all of these windows to make it a little more hospitable for the workers in the building. Now, what's really unique about this structure is the land that it sits on. That land is called Wolf Point, and it may not look like much right now, but back in the 1820s and 30s, this was the place to be, and it's where the founders of Chicago met to discuss the naming